Welcome back to another exciting episode of Meanwhile, back on the podcast. I'm Frank McGuire.
I'm Christina Dudumas.
Yeah, so Saba and Chris, they got a couple other things going on tonight, so they're not going to be joining us, but we'll see them back on another episode very soon. But we got some friends here to join us for today's show, and we'll introduce you to them in a couple seconds. But thank you for joining us. Now, before we get started, before we jump into the episode, I'd like to take some time to express our appreciation to you. Thank you for being here week to week. It wouldn't be the same without you, but seriously, thank you so much for all your love and support. Now, if this is your first time with us, introductions may be in order. So here's a quick exposition beat to tell you who we are and what Meanwhile is all about. We are a fandom culture, speculative fiction loving collective. And each week we will share our brand of raw, hard-hitting commentary, news, film, and game reviews from all your most beloved corners of fandom. Now, we're a panel of hilarious and knowledgeable co-hosts. We rarely see eye to eye on these things. To be honest, we designed it that way. How else are you going to get both sides of the argument? However, no matter what we end up disagreeing on, each of us champion open, nuanced, and thoughtful conversation when discussing our favorite made-up shit. Meanwhile is your one-stop shop for everything a growing fan person needs without any of those nasty preservatives. And if you like this episode and you don't want to miss the next one, be sure to subscribe. And don't be selfish. Share us with your friends. Sharing is caring. Now, I can't tell you how excited I am for today's episode. It is going to Ragnarok. You may or may not know this, but 3 years ago today, the great Taika Waititi debuted what was arguably one of the MCU's most game-changing films, Thor Ragnarok. And we are celebrating this milestone Meanwhile style. So jump aboard our intergalactic orgy ship for a wild synth-pounding ride through the devil's anus as we take you back to 2017, a time before COVID, TikTok, and President Kanye. Check out this sneak peek of what's coming up. I think that's what makes reading Thor so much fun, is that in the comics, the language and the style, it's its own kind of energy, it's its own kind of feel. When you read it, you feel like you're in a different world, even when you're already in a different world. Like you're in the different world of Marvel, but Thor takes you into a completely different world on top of that different world. So I feel like that's something that we're missing out on. And I know as a writer and as an inspiring filmmaker, it would be very hard to bring MCU Thor back to a place where they could actually do that again.
I feel like that's more of a moment where Loki's like, well, I don't want you to give up on me completely. Like, I get that you accept me, but I don't want you to give up on me. So he's still got to make like his move. And obviously Thor wasn't going to trust him to take him all the way over there, so he found another way.
Meanwhile, back on the podcast, 4 colossal nerds named Saba, Chris, Christina, and Frank have set out to take on a great darkness that has enveloped the world of fandom with their powers of common sense and the strength to take on even the most butthurt Twitter mobs and insufferable comment section trolls. They fight for truth, objectivity, and nuance in the conversation and debate over fictional made-up shit.
So like I said in our intro, today's episode, it's just me and Christina, but we've brought a couple of our friends along. I've got my buddy Jeremy and Selena live from Las Vegas here on the show with us today. And the reason I brought them on the show for this particular episode is because Jeremy and Selena and I and a couple other friends, we saw Thor Ragnarok together for the first time in Las Vegas.
Yeah, we saw it right there in the theater. I think you still owe me the money for those tickets actually that I bought.
That's such bullshit. That is such bullshit.
I think I remember paying for everybody, and I think you said you're going to pay me back, and I think
dude, come on. You're so full of shit. You're so full of shit. Listen.
Oh, bro. I forgave you for the money. Don't worry.
Listen. I applaud you coming at me on my own show. I really appreciate that. That's I should have expected this.
Oh, you should have.
I should have expected
I was waiting.
this.
I was like, oh, this movie, this is great. We saw this in the theater. I'm really gonna remember when people owe me money.
Pretty sure I hit you back, dude. I'm pretty sure. But if not, okay, then we can settle it. That's fine. That's fine. But speaking of tickets, by the way, Jeremy, you want to tell everybody what happened when you bought the tickets for us that night? You want to regale everybody with that story?
Shoot,
I don't think he remembers.
I don't think I remember. Yeah, go
Selena
ahead.
remembers.
You bought them at the
Selena
Rockies.
remembers.
You literally bought them. I think it was like what, California?
Is that
Was
what
that
Yeah,
happened?
you
bought
bought
the
them.
tickets?
You bought them
Oh,
in Santa
shoot.
Monica, California,
Yeah.
and we were
Oh
at,
my god.
and we were
yeah.
at Red Rocks. We were at Red Rocks in Las Vegas, and you bought
Yeah.
them in fucking California.
Oh
Oh,
god.
is
yeah,
it the
I remember-
amphitheater? I always wanted to go there.
The what?
Is that the amphitheater, Red Rock? What is that?
Yeah, isn't it,
well,
Jared?
Red Rock is
Red
it's
Rocks
a
is a
casino. Well, here in
Oh,
Vegas,
okay.
every
Be-
freaking casino has a movie theater. That's where our movie theaters are pretty much at, except for I think like 2 or 3 other 3 actual locations that
only
are
one
actual.
that I
No,
know
it's
of.
like 3 other actual theaters here that are actual theaters. The rest of them are literally just part of casinos. So Red Rock, it's an actual Red Rock casino location, and there's a theater inside. I think it was a Regal casino, which I don't even know. Even if they're going to be, apparently Regal just went out of business, so I don't even know if they even have it there anymore.
Yeah,
I'm really
lots of-
confused.
Lots of theaters going out of business. Eh? Holy shit, it's crazy.
But yeah, no, I remember when I bought the tickets, I had the app. I was using the app, and I bought it, and I think I had a shoot, I had a gig in California, just not too long ago, before you guys you were here, and I think it was still set up for California. So when I bought the tickets, I'm like, all right, let's buy the tickets. You, me, and 4 other people bought all the tickets. We get there, I'm like, all right, it's gonna be at this time, whatever time that was. All right, we all get there, and the ladies are like, "Oh, where's your tickets?" And I'm like, "Here's the tickets." And they're like, "It's not scanning." Why? I'm like, "What do you mean it's not scanning? It's right here in front of me. I bought the
Yeah.
tickets." They're
Yeah.
like, "It's not working." And then, oh my god! Until we ended up having to embarrassingly walk out and have to figure out what the heck actually happened. The ladies are like, "Yeah, these tickets are for California." I'm like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
Oh, the most embarrassing and stupidest thing I've
Yeah.
ever done.
Yeah, and we got there. We got there early enough to get good seats, but because of
Oh, yeah.
Jeremy's little screw up,
Yeah,
we had to
this is-
sit in the
this is
front
the weekend
row.
of it opening.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is the weekend of it opening.
Yeah.
We barely got to because everything was sold out.
yeah, we had to sit in the front row in IMAX. Like my neck
Oh,
was like
oh yeah, it was
craned upwards the entire time, dude. Brutal, man. Brutal.
It was really bad. I mean,
Brutal.
the movie I think itself was. I mean, it was a very interesting way of watching that movie.
Yeah, yeah,
to put it
definitely.
lightly.
Definitely. I remember that first scene. I was like, just looking up at that
Whoa.
opening scene with him in the cage, and I was like, what the hell is going
What
on?
is this? It gives
Like-
you a new perspective to the movie
Yeah.
if you're
Really
watching it in
under
such
him.
big
Yeah.
screen and you're just watching it from the bottom up. It's
Yeah.
it's like watching it as an ant. Now I
Yeah.
can understand how they feel.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. So let's dive into the film here. Let's get some initial impressions. Jerry, I know you were a big fan of it. Selena, I know you really enjoyed it too. How is this film aged for you guys? Have you gone back and watched it a couple times? Does it still have the same? Is it still the same experience for you? Like, you still like it?
Well, we actually just watched it again this morning. Like, we were like preparing for this.
Thank
We're
you
like,
for
"Oh,
preparing.
I don't
Thank
remember.
you.
I could not remember
Thank
what
you.
this movie was about to save my life the other day.
Wow,
So
wow.
because we haven't watched it since, we
Yep.
had
Yeah.
I don't know what it was about it, but
It was
just
it was a one it was
a
I feel
one-time
like
thing.
every Marvel movie. Yeah, I think every Marvel movie before, when I was still living with my parents before I got married and moved in, finally got my own place, I
Mhm.
would, if it was on TV, because they had cable, I'd watch cable with them, or I just would turn it on. If some movie was on, I'd rewatch it. But if it was on my own time, I'd never rewatched any Marvel movie ever, and that was one of those movies that I just not rewatched. I liked every movie of Marvel movies, and none of them captivated me for like, oh, I want to keep watching them over and over, like Harry Potter or something, or Star Wars. I would want to keep watching over and over. But Marvel movies, I love them so much that I think it was like a one-time only movie for me, and that's it for me. I just keep the memories of when I first watched it, and that's it.
I think
Gotcha.
it's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
yes,
that's
until
insane,
today.
too.
Today was the first time I rewatched the movie since 2017 with
Yeah,
you.
I'm one
So-
of those people that likes to rewatch the Marvel movies like a bunch of times.
Me
but
too.
for whatever reason, I don't
Yeah.
think Thor Ragnarok specifically was one of the ones that I ever like. Oh, I really want to watch that movie. Like, it wasn't a thing for me.
I forgot how funny it was for me when
Yeah,
we
I
rewatched
agree.
it today, and we were like, "Damn, this actually was a funny movie." I mean, I think it actually aged. I mean, graphically, everything about it, like from a film point of view, I think it aged pretty well for it being only 2017. I mean, we're only
Yep.
3 years since the movie, and I think it aged pretty well. I think I actually have more of a likeness to it with more of my background of film, and kind of rewatching it now, and I'm like, oh wow, the DP of the movie was really good. I think the lighting, everything about it, and how it was written, I think the parts was really, I think in my opinion, pretty well done. I liked it a lot. Rewatching it again.
Cool. So you guys both enjoyed it. That's great. Christina, I know you rewatched it too. I rewatched it a couple nights back as well. Christina, what were your thoughts?
I actually don't even remember if I saw this one in theaters, and I maybe saw like parts of it with my family. But yeah, so I think yesterday was the first time I actually sat down and watched it from beginning to end.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I liked it. It really felt like an Avengers movie, and I really liked all the characters that they brought into it. And I thought the pacing was really good of how they did that. It wasn't like too much all at once.
Okay. Okay, so I'll give you my take. Honestly, my opinion on the film has shifted a little bit. And I don't know whether it's because I've been doing a lot of research into the film and kind of looking underneath the veil to see what was behind it and some of the things that went into it. But my opinion has definitely shifted. It's not as groundbreaking and mind-blowing as it was before I decided to do this episode. And we'll talk about that as to why. But I still enjoy it. I think it's a visually stunning film. I think it has one of the best opening scenes in the history of Marvel, without a doubt. That fight scene with Thor against Surtur's minions, especially the one with the hammer kind of like cycling around him. And you can see him in the background punching guys. That's a fucking amazing shot. That's an amazing shot, right?
Yeah, you don't get that many in a lot of movies outside of even a Marvel, having like just a good, strong beginning that just captivates you right there in the start.
Yeah,
that was really good.
Yeah, like it's definitely strong on those points. I think that the humor is obviously very strong. It's a Taika Waititi movie, so like, you know, that's what Taika does. He interweaves dramatic scenes and tragedy with comedy, and he can do it almost effortlessly. And I don't know how he does it. He's almost like a wizard. It's just like he finds the perfect places to drop the little comedic beats and finds the little places to drop the emotional beats, and he does a really good job of it. So it is a great blend, and he is an excellent storyteller. So overall, I enjoy the film. It's a great film. I really enjoy it. But as the more and more I watched it, I could poke a lot more holes in it. And one of the things that I definitely want to dive into is who was Thor before Ragnarok and who is Thor now after Ragnarok? Because I think that's important. I think one of the things that Taika Waititi was really focused on, and I think Chris Hemsworth was kind of his ally in this, and I think they discussed this a lot, was basically leaving what Thor was before behind and trying to create something completely new and something fresh and something that had never been done before. Because, you know, Thor has always had like this kind of tone. It was more in line, more reflective. Like the first two films were more reflective of the actual comic books and the animated shows. You know, Thor is like this very Shakespearean tone. You know, he speaks with the Old English. All the Asgardians do. And you know, I find it funny that Asgard, Thor, and Odin, Frigga, Loki are all Norse gods, apparently. But the only thing reflective of the Vikings and their Norwegian culture is their names and their nomenclature. That's it. Like, they don't have any, like, you don't hear a Norwegian accent. You know, they sound like Brits. Everybody sounds like a Brit.
Yeah,
so
I feel
it's
like
kind
they
of
always
funny.
do that for
Sorry?
old whenever the characters are supposed to be old or something, they just give them a British accent.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I feel like that's what you kind of feel like in the back of your head. That's exactly what you feel like.
Yeah. But like
stuff like that.
But like even in films when they, you know, even with classic films when they deal with Egypt or they deal with, you know, any real foreign kind of ancient locale, it's like everybody's going to be an English actor to kind of sell the antiquity of this thing. And I'm glad we're moving away from that though, you know, like, you know, I'm glad we're moving away from that stuff and moving towards more accurate representation of culture and of period and of countries, you know. I think that's important. So do you guys kind of pick up on the same thing that I'm picking up, that, you know, that there's this radical shift of the tone from Thor 1 and Thor 2 as they went into Ragnarok? Ragnarok is like this vastly different Thor. Do you guys get that as well?
I couldn't remember so much. I know I didn't rewatch the first two movies right before
Okay.
this one.
Yeah.
So I couldn't remember as much. I forgot that I should have looked at those last two movies. I just
That's
remember
all
those
good.
being good
It's all
movies,
good.
but I
Yeah.
couldn't remember how the transformation went from those two to this one.
Well, the way that Christina, did you see Thor 1 and Thor 2?
I did, and I remember liking the first one kind of, but it was kind of slow and a bit boring. I don't know, but I definitely remember liking Natalie Portman's character and Loki the best. So Jane Foster and Loki were like my favorite characters there. I didn't even like Thor as much as like two supporting characters, basically. And then the second one, I'm pretty sure, is the war one that like I could never finish. I tried to watch that one so many times with my family. And I just hate these long epic war movies. Like I
Oh,
can't.
the one where they're being attacked by elves? That one?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It just felt like a Lord of the Rings movie or something. I'm like,
Which
I
I
don't know.
very much endure.
Which like the
Love
Lord of the
those.
Rings movies are kind of better, but I still find they're long. And the second one just
Yeah.
felt long and slow and like
Right.
a big long war movie.
Right.
So,
But
I don't know. It was, but it wasn't exactly a war movie, so I don't know. It just didn't. Do
okay,
it for
but
me.
let's focus in on the tonal shift. Like Christina, do you notice the tonal shift between the characters? Like
So,
Thor 1 and Thor 2 was like very Shakespearean, and then
Yeah.
Thor Ragnarok was like almost a complete departure from that
It's
character.
definitely a fresher take, and it feels
Yeah.
more in line with one of the Avengers movies rather than like a Thor movie. So that's what I got.
Well, even Thor in the Avengers movie still carried on that Shakespearean kind of vibe with him, you know?
Right, but the movies as a whole had a different vibe than
Yeah.
the Thor movies.
Yeah.
And I
yeah.
felt like he just carried on more like in a Avengers style transition.
Yeah, like, you know, I feel like when we're first introduced to Thor in Thor 1, he's like this spoiled, arrogant, rich kid. You know, he's
Yeah.
got
Oh, that I do remember. Yeah.
yeah. He's got like impulse control issues. He's got this lack of empathy. His sense of humor is more in line with Shakespearean or like a period reflective comedy. Like, you know, like those old English jokes that people would make, like those kind of things. Like that's more of his sense of humor. And I definitely feel he's less self-aware, he's less introspective, and he definitely has a lot less dimension than the character has now. You know, this is all going to get into Ragnarok very soon because I feel like this is important things to establish. Going beyond Thor and the other characters in the larger picture, we're going to zoom out a bit here. So the pantheon of Norse gods and the monarchy of Asgard in these first two movies is framed as like this benevolent and good thing, right? Protector of the 9 realms, the good old wise king who fights the evils and keeps the wolves from the door. And, you know, Thor is obviously charged with being the guardian of the kingdom. Like that's what we see him do in Thor 2. He's traveling across the 9 realms and fighting off all these bandits and ne'er-do-wells with Mjolnir and with the Warriors 3 and Lady Sif, right? And they arrest that. But at the end of Thor 2, like I think we get a much different man than he was when we first met him. Like he's humble, he's self-aware, he's empathetic, he's emotionally mature. There's even a part in Thor 2 where he actually tells his father that he doesn't want throne, he doesn't want the crown. He's not interested in it anymore. He doesn't feel like he doesn't feel like it fits him. It doesn't fit the direction of the life that he wants that he wants to have, you know? So I think that these movies, the first two movies, really were true to the comic books, true to the source material, true to the legend of Thor, and really used this world building. Their world building was more focused on Asgard and the grandiosity of the pantheon of Norse gods. And then you see Taika Waititi and he basically tears the entire thing down. Right? Like, wouldn't you agree that
It got flipped.
Yeah, it got flipped.
I think it got flipped in the good way. Well, at least for me, it got flipped in the way of like, it was more of a, like it was more pleasing to watch because it felt more towards like more earthy, I guess, if you want to put it that way.
You mean like more identifiable?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's fair. Now, I want to make an interesting comparison here. And Jer and Selena, I know you'll have a strong opinion on this too, probably. But I see in Thor, as the character is developed, the same thing that I saw between the OT and the prequel trilogy and the sequel trilogy. I see almost the same kind of tonal shift. In the original trilogy and in the sequel trilogy, the Jedi were very, very much, they almost had the same kind of style of speech, the same kind of regal air to them as the Thor characters did, right? The Asgardians did.
Yeah.
And then in the sequel trilogy in Star Wars, we kind of see them lose that. They almost kind of find this more relatable, more identifiable, more modernized kind of tone to their characters.
Yeah. Kind of what I was just saying. Yeah.
And I'm wondering if one was an influence on the other or vice versa, right? I'm wondering if there was any sort of influence there at that point. I don't know. Christina, what are your thoughts on that as far as kind of Star Wars almost mirroring this kind of tonal shift? But
I don't are we talking about comparing the trilogies of Star Wars to the tonal shift in this? Because obviously each trilogy was super different, or are we talking about just the most recent Star Wars?
Well, I'm saying my argument is that the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy all had a very consistent tone throughout them, where it wasn't old English, but the choice of words within dialogue were more in line with an older time period, right? A more classic time period, right?
Yeah, and I think that makes sense too, because each trilogy of Star Wars came in a different decade, and they were trying to appeal to different audiences and different generations. So I think for sure that made sense. And I definitely agree. Obviously, Chris Hemsworth drops the accent in this third movie, and I
drops
do think
the accent.
that,
He still has the accent.
It's just less. It's just less.
Yeah, it's not so
as much.
Really,
yeah,
you guys noticed
so
that? I didn't notice that
Yeah.
at all. Okay, go ahead, Christina. Sorry.
Yeah, so I don't know. To me, it just felt like he was more down to earth in these movies rather than trying to be godly.
I think that's where the humor came from. I think it's because of the slight humorous parts of the movie came in, and it made him sound more relatable to you. So it's oh yeah, I think it felt like his kind of his demeanor changed.
Yeah, no, I think I think the humor had a lot to do with it for sure. Christina, I want to go back to what you were saying. You said it made it less godly.
Yeah, less. I don't know. I just felt like he was kind of more down to earth. It felt more like a superhero rather than a god in this.
But the irony is that he's a god, though.
I know, I get that.
And that's kind of one of the problems I have with this film, to be honest with you. I feel at the end of Dark World, at the end of Thor 2, he's renouncing the throne, right? I think that's a very interesting character development. He's renouncing the throne. He's saying, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I want to go out and I want to do my own thing. He wants to be the protector of Midgard, or, he wants to protect the Nine Realms. I don't see why Taika Waititi had to get rid of that part of Thor. Because I think that part of Thor is almost the most unique thing about him against the other Avengers. The tonal shift has almost made him more homogenous with the rest of the Avengers.
Yeah. I kind of don't mind that. It makes for a more interesting movie, and maybe that was just because the tone of the whole movie was different. Maybe it just would have felt weird to have him acting that way in this movie.
Yeah, I think with this last movie, I think it was more. I think it could stand alone on its own. And if he would have added that part, which I think would have been a good idea, to add more of what happened in the previous movies, then that I feel like there should have been a between movie. There should have been a Thor 3.5 type of thing, or 2.5, somewhere in between that, for it to establish more of what was going on. Because Thor now, this third movie, worse, they confuse me. But I think that one stands alone as a movie by itself. And I think
And to me, it felt more like a continuation of the Avengers movie rather than of the Thor movie. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Selena, I want to get your thoughts on this too. I haven't heard from you since we were making fun of Jeremy for buying the wrong tickets.
As you were saying, I like the idea of him being a god, which puts him as a different, I guess it gives him a different part of the Avengers. He's not just any old guy walking off the street like Captain America, who
Exactly.
was just somebody who walked off the street and became a superhero. Like
Exactly.
Thor was born a god.
Yeah.
And I feel like that should be influenced.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree with you. And don't you guys think that the gravity of so if they continued to keep Thor a demigod as far as his character development, instead of moving towards bro Thor, because that's who this guy is to me now, he's bro Thor, okay? If they kept him the way that he was meant to be, doesn't it mean a lot more when he shows humility and he shows humanity and he shows vulnerability as a god? Like, doesn't that mean a lot more in the context when he's like when he's still a god? Doesn't that have more weight and more gravitas?
I feel like it does. I feel like any god, like in any religious sort of way, should have that sort of humility. And I think that Thor showing that was way more influential as him as a god rather than him as just, an average Joe.
Yeah, no. And I agree with that. But like, I'm conflicted. Like, I'm so conflicted because Waititi's decisions with Thor, or Chris Hemsworth's decisions and Waititi's decisions with Thor, was basically what set him up in Infinity War and set him up in Endgame, which made him the character he was in those two films too. And there's a lot of moments in those films I wouldn't trade for anything. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
I think it was just easier to integrate this version of the character into the rest of the MCU. Like,
yeah, but
Yeah.
see, but I don't know about that. Like, I don't think it would have been that tough to keep Thor the way he is, because let's face it, in the source material, he's still the same deity speaking the same old English. Like,
yeah, he's not bro Thor in the comic.
He's definitely not bro Thor at all. Like, he still speaks the same way, right? And I think that's what makes reading Thor so much fun, is that in the comics, the language and the style, it's its own kind of energy. It's its own kind of feel. When you read it, you feel like you're in a different world, even when you're already in a different world. Like, you're in the different world of Marvel, right? But Thor takes you into a completely different world on top of that different world, right? So I feel like that's something that we're missing out on. And I know as a writer and as an inspiring filmmaker, it would be very hard to bring MCU Thor back to a place where they could actually do that again. Like, it would almost be impossible at this point.
I don't think they would. I feel like they're accepting of this version of Thor.
No, I know they are. No, obviously they are. He's like, he's broken box office. Fans have been very public and very vocal about the fact that they love this Thor way more than they love the classic Thor, right? So it's not going to happen, obviously.
And he just has such good chemistry with other characters this way, like, because it would be weirder for Thor to like get along with Star-Lord if he was acting the way he used to act and not now.
Yeah, that Guardians of the Galaxy scene would never work with classic Thor. 100%.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the old Thor could have added another dimension to that experience. I don't know. That's my take. I don't know.
I could see where you're going with that, but
Yeah.
I really don't feel like I'm missing out on anything, because coming from someone who never watched the first two Thor movies, because I just didn't have an interest in them, and then leading all the way up to watching Infinity War and stuff like that, I feel like I like bro Thor more than I would ever like godly Thor.
Yeah. And like I
Okay,
said, I
fair
like
enough.
Jane Foster and Loki in that first movie better than I liked Thor. He just like wasn't interesting. He was kind of dull.
Yeah, I think Loki makes the movies.
Yeah,
She loves that
I
character
love
a lot.
Loki.
Yeah.
Yeah, Loki's fantastic. Loki is probably one of the best, if not one of the best, kind of anti-villainous kind of heroes.
And he
Or,
kind of still acts
yeah.
like a classic Norse god or whatever. Like
He does,
doesn't-
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
Because
He
even
does.
when they go down to Earth in this,
Yeah,
he's
there's
still
no
wearing
bro
the
Loki.
suit.
Yeah.
He's wearing
No
a
bro.
suit and has Thor's dressed like dude bro. He has like a hoodie with like
Yeah.
drawstring.
Yeah, no, and I like the fact that they maintain that with Loki, but then again, it does screw with the chemistry between those two characters. I really feel like it does, but
Yeah, but it
you
makes it makes Loki feel more like villainous too.
Yeah.
like I think it's a good concept.
yeah, I guess so. I think that's a good point. maybe, okay, so here's my suspicion. This is my takeaway from what Waititi did with the movie. I think Waititi has a lot of contempt for royalty and monarchies and the ruling class. And I feel like this personal ideology motivated a lot of what he did in this film. I almost feel like it played a very large role in how he designed Thor and the world of Thor he created for the foreseeable future. You know, I think a lot of Waititi's decisions with the Thor character and with the movie, it seems to me like there's this subtext of contempt for royalty, for monarchies, for the ruling class. And I feel like his personal ideologies kind of bled into how the character was going to be designed and who he wanted Thor to be and how he wanted the world of Thor to kind of be built in this new version of the world of Thor. Because if you watch the film, that whole thing is torn down. Like everything is taken down. Not only is it taken down, but Waititi's exposition about Hela being Thor's sister and her time with Odin really undercuts and undermines all the good we thought that Odin did in the past, right? They basically say like Odin was waging war across the galaxy and conquering civilizations and planets, you know, which does contradict the benevolent protector identity of the, you know, that Odin had over the 9 realms, you know? So not only does he kill Asgard, he blows it up, literally. He blows up Asgard, but he also undercuts what Asgard was. So I feel a lot of this is really kind of, you know, there's a lot of socio-political motivation behind that. Am I the only one feeling that?
I could see that. It was kind of the whole main theme of the movie too. Yeah.
Yeah. Anti-imperialism,
So
yeah.
yes, I would agree with that. I think it was a good story though. I liked it. I liked seeing the shady side of it. But a character like Odin, I feel like the old gods, those kinds of old gods, they aren't like all good. They do things for their own reasons. They have their own motivations to do things, and like maybe they're kind of manipulative in some ways. Like
they definitely are.
So I think that's kind of true to that type of mythology. So I think that kind of fits with a character like Odin. But yeah, I liked seeing that he had this dark secret and he had this secret daughter and she came forth and like messed with everything. I feel like that is the sort of thing that would happen in a mythology. So I think that fit for me.
When the king dies, somebody out of nowhere comes
or
out.
even just like the character who rules hell, like never actually wants to be there. It's kind of just a duty they're given and they're always like, what the F, like why? So I could see that. Or it's like usually some kind of punishment. They're there because they're being punished. So
Selena, what's your take on what I said about Waititi's kind of subtext throughout this entire movie?
I don't really know where to go with that. I mean,
did you see it? Like, do you if you think back, do you think you see the same thing that I see or no?
I honestly don't know because I feel like that what he did in the movie was the same as any other monarch he was ever built upon. Like they conquered lands, they had a dark secret. They might be peaceful now, but that doesn't mean they didn't have a past and before.
Right.
I don't really see that being as his desire to downfall monarchies.
You know, you make a good point. You know, nobody who has like anybody that has a golden city didn't get it by being good. You know what I'm saying?
Rather unfortunate to say, but it's true.
Yeah. Like anybody that has a golden city probably didn't get it by just doing benevolent things. 100%.
Blood was
I think that's
spilled.
fair. Yeah. I think that's fair. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's because I was born in a country that was ruled by England, but like maybe I'm failing to see that. I don't know what it is, but no, not Canada. Ireland, monkey. Ireland, monkey. Jesus.
Well, I mean, Canada was technically too.
We're still Christina. What are we classified as? A dominion? Is that what it is?
No, yeah, we still have some kind of connection to England.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Googled
Yeah,
it the
we
other
have
day.
the-
We just found out about this.
There's like a person who is kind of like a figurehead, and Justin Trudeau like answers to that person, kind of. But
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
governor,
magistrator,
general,
the something
yeah.
of the crown, or
I don't
something
know,
like
but that person doesn't. It
Yeah, we Googled
Yeah.
it the other day of like, oh wait, what? There's still freaking kings and queens in more countries than we
yeah,
thought there
they
were.
don't actually have
I was
any
very
power
surprised.
though. Like they never override a decision made by the prime minister. So
Yeah.
Too
It was
funny.
it was very interesting though. I was like, well, you should if you don't know, you should
although
totally Google it.
who knows
I was very surprised
with the way
Damn.
things are
funny,
going,
too
who
funny.
knows? Like,
Good
That's
point.
true.
Good point.
But-
Kings and queens.
But like, there was a very socialist message in this movie, though,
I
especially
didn't get a
with
socialist
Really?
message. I just
Yeah.
got like an
I would.
I
didn't
got
see
an
that.
anti-monarchy or like anti-authoritarian or autocracy kind of message, but not.
sure, but the whole narrative about the people being, the Asgard isn't a place, it's a people. The whole thing with Heimdall being almost the
Well, I don't
organizer.
think that's a socialist thing.
behind the scenes.
though. Like
It can be interpreted that way a little bit. I'm not saying
I,
I'm
I
like,
s- I saw it as
listen,
an emotional thing. Like, oh, we
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
our people.
That's fair.
Like, you could say the same for any country. Any country could come to that
fair.
realization. Like, the land
It's
is the
like when
land, but
people
we are
say-
who we are, and if we have to move,
Yeah.
we'll move, and that's it, right?
It's
yeah,
like when people say the same thing about home isn't a place, it's a person.
yeah, true,
like-
true. Yeah, guys. So I sent you that deleted scene, the one with Odin's death, and the first time Hela comes calling, and I wanted to get your take on that because I watched it a couple times, and I really feel like it fills in a lot of the gaps that I kind of had. In the existing version of Odin and Thor saying goodbye to, or sorry, Thor and Loki saying goodbye to Odin, it's very symmetrical, meaning like he's almost treating Thor and Loki exactly the same. And I
Yeah.
guess you could make the argument that because he's dying, that's why he's doing that. But at the
Yeah.
end of Thor 2, Odin's basically almost sentencing him to death. I felt like this particular deleted scene was more in line with where kind of Odin and Loki's relationship kind of ended in Thor 2. Like he's drunk, right? You can tell he's drunk,
Mhm.
but he's also very vocal about
Yeah.
how he feels towards Loki. Yes, he loves him, but he also addresses his crimes.
Honestly, I like this, but I like this scene a lot better. Actually, this is the first time I even heard about it. Once
Yeah.
you sent it to me, I was like, "Wait, what? I didn't even know this existed." And watching it, I was like, "Wow, yeah, this has more background to what should have happened in the actual movie." Like, I feel like there is, like you were saying, there is more information here
Yeah.
that should have been given in the movie, and now
Yeah.
it's not. It's in the deleted scene, which shouldn't have been deleted. I think this was a really good scene. I
Yeah.
think there's a couple parts that I like about the original scene in the movie. The way he dies. I mean, I kind of like the way he does fade away, kind of like Thanos snap kind of thing. He just kind of dusts away in the
Mhm.
gold glimmering light. And I think it looks really cool. And I kind of like that part, and like where they were, it looked really cool. I mean, for me, as again, filmmaking background, I think it looked really great. I like that a lot more. But for it to make more sense, this scene should have been put in instead of the other one.
Yeah, I think so too. Christina, what was your take on that scene?
I agree with that. I think it makes it feel less like Hela's coming out of nowhere. Because I feel like if you are going to bring a character out of nowhere, it should be a little bit epic. You have to have like
Yeah.
an entrance. She makes an entrance in this scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I do think that the scene we got was maybe more of like an emotional kind of ending for Odin. So I feel like that's why they did it. Like Odin kind of dies abruptly in this scene.
Well, and I think they wanted that exposition of, my life is the only thing holding her back. So the moment he dies, she can kind of come through, right? But I think
Yeah.
that they could have done this at the same time.
I think
'Cause-
the explanation of Ragnarok does feel a little bit forced in this. Like he's trying to tell them everything that's going to happen, and like that, I find that annoying when they kind of use something like that as a vehicle to fill in plot. But yeah,
Yeah, it's exposition. Like it's heavy on the exposition, sure. but Thor hasn't seen Odin in like years, right?
Yeah.
Because he thought that he thought Loki was Odin at the end of. Sorry, yeah, Loki was pretending to be Odin at the end of Thor 2.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my guess is that Loki had already put him somewhere and basically taken over Asgard at that point. But yeah, no, I really think that this scene better serves the story, better serves the characters. And like I
think
said,
the first 2 minutes should have been implemented into the movie, because I don't like the way how Odin dies in this scene. Like I said, I was thinking it reminds me a lot of Star Wars when Han Solo dies, when he gets stabbed in the chest from his son, and I'm just like, bro, this is like the same thing.
And he doesn't really like fight back or anything. He
Yeah.
just gives into it. So
Yeah.
I don't know. if
He's
that's
just like, well, this is it. I'm done. Okay, bye.
He's like, I knew this was supposed to happen. I forgot to tell you guys. Sorry.
Exactly. I think the first like minute and a half of this scene definitely needed to be, the background part of it needed to be, and the way she comes in was like,
the entrance.
where does this even come? Like, because in the movie she comes in like, oh, thunders are coming, and I thought it's just because Odin died, and then she just appears out of nowhere, and it's just like they turn around like, oh, hey, how you doing? Like, there's nothing crazy cool about this scene. In this particular scene, there's more like, oh damn, like, who is this person? Why is she here?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And why is she so angry?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, it's both scenes are very sudden, right? And they lack a lot of build up. They they don't really earn that moment, to be honest. That's kind of the way I've always seen it.
I feel like they could have built up to her character. It feels like they could have done like something at the beginning of the movie and then kind of like built from there.
Well, I think that they could have teased her in a previous Thor movie
they should have
too.
done that. Yeah, they should have done that at like an end credit type of thing.
Yeah. I think that would have been better.
They should have done that. They should have done that like a second ending credit of Thor 2. Like, they should have put that like, oh, what? Like, she's gonna be in the movie? Like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, now we know who this is.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think that would have been the best way to do it. Yeah, and am I the only one that wants an explanation as to whether the Asgardians are aliens or whether they're gods? Like, what the hell? Like, there's this
I think
blurred...
they're sort of both in the MCU.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it doesn't... They refer to Hela as the goddess of death, right? You really feel like she's coming out of a place, reminiscent of like a hell or some sort of dark dimension or whatever, but she's Asgardian as well. She's Odin's daughter. So I don't know. It's a weird, I don't know.
I feel like the Eternals is going to give us more insight into like the god part of the universe. Yeah, I think they give us insight to every race, every subgroup, as it kind of moves into exposition through that movie, for sure. So I think we can all agree that Thor suffers some incredible losses and some traumas in this movie. However, this is probably by far one of the funniest MCU movies.
Oh yeah.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
How do you beat the shit out of your main protagonist like this so brutally, and then still be able to land the comedic beats and the comedic timing that was delivered? Like, it's almost like a superpower. This is Taika Waititi's superpower.
Yeah, but this is the part where we see Thor as a god too, because he would go through so much. Like, he's a soldier. He's someone who's been battling, on the battlefield his whole life.
Right.
So, and he went through a lot in the first two movies, I guess, too. So
he went through a lot in the first two movies. He lost his mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
He had his powers taken away. But then in Ragnarok, his dad dies. All of his friends are killed.
Yeah.
Like, instantly. He finds out his sister is a murdering psychopath. He doesn't really have the easiest time of things, but he's able to kind of maintain this sense of humor throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, if you, I mean, after putting it that way, I didn't even think about it, because if you just watch this movie on its own, you're just like, damn, this is super funny. Like this is really good. Like the comedic parts of everywhere in the movie is just like, it's perfect. But then if you put the background to it, to the last couple movies, you're just like, wait, why is he so funny? Like, where does this actually come from? Like, this is great and all, but like, why?
And he loses his eye too, on top of all of that.
Sorry, Christina.
He loses his eye on top of all of
Yeah.
that. He's still funny after he loses his eye.
Yeah,
And he's still fine. He still finds a good comedic part for it on. I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
yeah.
I didn't even think about it. You kind of messed me up on that. I really liked, because this movie on its own, the parts of it being just so funny was just so well placed.
Yeah.
It's
It's
entertaining.
It just like, it gave you just like those good chuckles. Like that's a good one.
Okay.
Like that's funny. Like that's great. Like that's perfect.
But I feel like
compared
that
to like other movies that do it and it just does it so badly.
So I feel like people who just like their job is just like a lot, they just like are funny. So like people who are paramedics and stuff, they find this like dark humor. They just find
Yeah.
ways to bring like
Sadistic.
levity. Yeah, it's like and like nurses too. I know police people. I know security people. So I kind of feel like it's this like
Sometimes
it's just from
a
how
way of coping.
it's a coping mechanism. Yeah, just
Yeah.
because you go through so much
True.
all the time. So that's the humor didn't feel like too much. It felt
Yeah.
like the right amount of humor
True.
to me.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, because I feel like there's a point where we all kind of do that just to like cope, to deal with whatever it is that's going on. I feel like America's doing a lot of that right now with the election going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. Like that's a good way. Of
Yeah, how are
putting
you
it. I
guys
didn't even
doing
think about
down there? Do you need some emotional support, Canadians?
Emotional support
I seen the
Canadians,
meme
yeah.
of Canada looking at the.
Yeah.
I seen the meme where like there's a picture of a guy like just like with popcorn in his mouth, and it says Canada watching the U.S. right now.
There's one with a guy peeking through his blinds eating ketchup chips. That's my
Ketchup chips? What?
Ketchup chip.
What the
That's
hell is
a-
a ketchup chip?
You guys
That's
don't
a
have
thing
ketchup
up
chips?
here.
What?
We
the
have
No,
hell?
wait, is that a
ketchup chip.
thing? Shut the hell up.
Yeah,
That is not a
man.
real thing.
Yeah, it's
It's a
real,
real
dude.
thing.
Ketchup, like
Yeah.
Heinz, like like stuff that
Yeah.
you put on
Yeah.
your burger.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, we have ketchup
Got Jeremy's
chips.
attention.
Bro,
What?
you know I'm a big lover of ketchup.
Jeremy-
Oh, you gotta
I
try
literally
these chips.
don't-
They're great.
I am one of those weird ones. Like if you come here and you ask my friends, my close friends, and they're like, "How much does Jeremy love ketchup?" Well, let's just say he has his own ketchup bottle in his office.
Okay,
They literally-
we're gonna send you. I think we're gonna have to send you some chips then.
I
Yeah, I
did
might
not
just
know
have
those
some ketchup
existed.
chips, bro.
I feel like that's something that should have been like on Rhett and Link. Like I love those guys.
So there you go, Frank. You're gonna have to send him a ticket's worth of ketchup chips.
I can give him some ketchup
Please,
chips.
I really need to try that. That is so freaking cool.
Yeah, I can do that.
That's so cool.
Okay, they're
But-
kind of taste like salt and vinegar, but not as sour. A little bit
Really?
sweet. Like
Yeah.
I love salt and
they're
vinegar,
nice.
too.
And the
It's like a
red,
really
dude,
nice
the
flavor,
red, this
yeah.
red powder like gets all over your hands like you would not
Like
believe.
Doritos.
Like Doritos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the messiest chips to eat without a doubt. The ketchup chips,
Okay.
and like your lips are red, like your fuck. It's a mess, dude. It's a
How
mess.
is that not in America?
They're
Yeah.
delicious.
Currently
They're really
Googling them
good.
right now, just so
I
you
don't
know.
bro. Hey, I'm
Chips.
not surprised. I'm not surprised. Did anyone feel like the humor kind of undermined the dramatic and emotional beats of the film though?
I don't know. I felt like the humor fit in the movie, but I see your point, and I think that it's a good thing that they actually made that all catch up to Thor eventually and take a toll on Thor. So I think we do see
It
that
definitely-
eventually.
It definitely catches up to him because like you got to remember Infinity War kicks off right at the end of Ragnarok. Like, you know, the end credit scene is Thanos' ship bearing down on the Asgardian ship.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
the second
Right?
ending scene.
So that's the ending scene. So literally the next beat is Thanos coming aboard, you know, and then the whole thing with Hulk, the whole thing with Heimdall. He watches his best friend die in front of him. He watches his brother die in front of him.
Yep.
And yeah, and he gets blown up and thrown out into space. And yeah, just listen, there's not, Thor is the most traumatized character in the history of the MCU, period.
I can see
Like,
that.
there's-
See that, yeah.
Like there's nobody that's been through more than Thor, without a
Yeah.
doubt.
But
You
I
know-
think he's also like the most prepared for it. He's been like training for war. His
That's
whole
true.
life.
Because of
I
how
can
much
see
has
that.
gone to him,
And he's
How much has
thousands of
happened?
years old. He's thousands of years old.
and he
But,
looks
like,
great.
Yeah, he does look pretty good. But like, if you think about it in that context, right? If you think about his life if you think about his lifespan, like let's say it's like 1500 years, right? In the last year of his life, in the entire 1500 years of his life, he's had more shit go wrong
That's
in
true.
that
Yeah.
in that small space of time than the 1500 years that he's been alive. That's crazy.
That's why we eventually see him hit rock bottom.
That's
So,
probably
yeah.
why. Yeah.
That's why he gets so fat.
And they do it so brilliantly too. I love that
They
part.
did.
Yeah.
It was
Right when
good.
you come in and you're just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, when I saw that opening part when in that scene when I was like, dude, that is so great. You just heard nothing but laughter in the theater. It was
Yeah.
great.
You know, I think
So
though,
good.
I think the film would have benefited from a quiet moment with Chris Hemsworth to just see it on his face a little bit. You know, just to see him feel it, that, you know, just the weight of that during that time period of Ragnarok. Like just see him kind of be with it but on his own. You know, I think that shot would have really kind of helped fill in the gaps a little bit, you know,
I don't
instead
know.
of
I don't think so. I think
no.
I think it would have fit better because it's like at the end of the movie, like you were saying, he breaks down into the beginning of the next movie. Like that's just how coping works. Like you put it off for a little while, you joke, you make light of the situation and stuff like that. And then if like, God forbid something worse happens, you're going to break down like that to the extent that he did.
True.
To where he just gave up everything. He drank to death. He literally was drinking himself to death.
Yeah.
So I feel like that kind of fit in. I don't think having that big heartfelt moment where he like broke down was necessary because you kind of need that build up to go into the next movies.
Yeah,
I
it's
get
the
that.
fill in the blanks kind of part.
I get that. You know what? The more and more I watch these MCU, DC movies, Star Wars movies, I really don't want to see these stories anymore in feature films. I almost kind of feel like the time constraints are just killing story. I don't know. Like maybe it's just because I'm so used to reading comic books where they tell you an entire story over like 6 issues, or even larger.
I definitely think they could bring more depth to a graphic novel or something.
Yeah.
But I feel like this movie was not about depth. That's not something that they were like trying to do here. They were just trying to make
wasn't
like
about depth. No.
a fun like action comic.
It was
movie.
it was a sci-fi synthwave action comedy basically. Yeah, I would definitely say that. So I want to get into the character development because I think that was one of the high points of the film. One of the big achievements of the film is they did a really good job of developing all the characters. Some were a little bit more predictable than others, but that's just kind of because of their starting, you know, where they were on the starting line. Like as soon as you meet Valkyrie, you know she's going to go good, right? You're like, oh, she's got this troubled, traumatized past where, you know, she's drinking herself into an early death, but she's eventually going to see the writing on the wall and she's going to do the right thing. Like you already knew that about Valkyrie.
Solo.
Sorry?
She's the Han Solo.
Yes, she
movie.
describes herself as the Han Solo, actually.
Yeah.
Tessa Thompson literally said, I'm the Han Solo of the film. But I think that they did a great job with the character development. But here's the thing. Can you classify what they did with Thor as character development? Because he literally starts the movie with a completely different personality. He's lighthearted,
I feel like
he's
that's a different
wisecracking.
Situation.
Sorry?
Too. It's a different situation too at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah,
and then his dad dies, and then he gets a little bit more somber.
No. I'm talking about literally before Odin even comes into the movie. Like that whole scene with him in the cage, that is not Thor. That's Bro Thor.
What scene in the cage? Wait, I'm trying to remember.
The very first intro scene.
Yeah, when he's talking to Hulk. He actually breaks the fourth wall and looks directly into the camera.
If you put the crown in the fire, the dude goes big.
Yeah,
he has to defeat him first.
Yeah, but you think, but he's in the cage. You think he's breaking the fourth wall, but he's talking to that skeleton that's right next to him, right?
Yeah.
And his style of speaking, his choice of words is definitely not old Thor. It's very Bro Thor.
Maybe it was a way of like kind of showing you what's to happen.
It definitely was. But
I'm like, this is like Selena was saying earlier. It was this coping maybe with all the comedic parts of everything, but a little bit of his, you know, tearing down and starting to, you know, curl in a ball and, you know, destroy himself. This is kind of was the beginning of the end of that movie type of feel. Like you
Maybe.
didn't notice it until you see the next movies.
Maybe, but I really think that this wasn't okay. Can we all agree it wasn't a slow progression into Bro Thor? Because it definitely wasn't a slow
Yeah.
progression.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was almost like breakneck
Oh
speed.
yeah, no, like I feel like this was a different Thor than the other
Yeah.
2 movies.
Yeah, it was almost like he had multiple personality disorder.
Well,
he's
if
got
you
this
watch
whole-
if you watch the first 2 movies, but if you were just coming at it into
Yeah.
this movie, then you would never know that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah,
I
but
agree with that.
yeah, but the point I'm making is that there wasn't any real character development on Thor. And the other argument you can make for the lack of character development is, and this is already a fact now. A lot of people on the set have already said this. Taika's even said this. 80% of the dialogue in the film was improvised. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but
Wait, what?
like
No.
80%.
Yeah.
Links.
That doesn't
Yeah.
surprise me for like a fun action comedy.
Yeah.
And also I think it's like
Makes
what
sense.
Hemsworth would do. Like I could picture Hemsworth doing that.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I agree. I don't think there was a lot of character development, but I don't think that was kind of the point of the movie. I don't think they were trying to be deep at all. This was not a deep movie. It was
no,
just
I
kind
know,
of
but
like,
when you make a film, you gotta give your character an arc, and they did give Thor an arc. Some like it's a shallow arc, but it's an arc, right? Like at the end, he figures out that Asgard is not a place, it's a people,
right.
and he's the god of thunder, so he doesn't need his hammer anymore.
I think there's also
Right.
a theme of like teamwork. Like he has to like be the leader and like build this team and
Yeah,
try to
but he's
convince
always been a
people
team
to,
player.
like-
I think. I don't know.
yeah, but I guess he kind of has to be the leader and like put his team together and go into battle with the team that he put together. So.
Yeah. I think the most interesting character development was on Loki and Hulk. That was my takeaway.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
in this
I
one.
agree.
Yeah, the Hulk, he actually gets a personality. You see him act like a total petulant little child. He's throwing temper
Yeah.
tantrums.
Seeing him in the
And-
jacuzzi was the best part, and then
That was
finally
hilarious.
seeing him finally see his butt cheeks. I didn't even know if he had
That
butt
was
cheeks. That
hilarious.
was nice to know that he actually had a pair.
Yeah.
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 Oh my gosh.
I feel like that was a nice thing, and I feel like that's because the Hulk was only ever going to get one movie. They weren't going to do another Hulk movie after the first one.
Well,
And,
the Hulk movies are tough to do, right? Because
Yeah, there's a lot.
he's got one emotion, smash,
Yeah.
and anger,
Yeah.
right? But the good thing is I think we got to see a little bit more of some nuanced emotions in the Hulk,
Yeah.
I think that he's been the
Yeah.
Hulk for so long, or Banner's been the Hulk for so long. He's kind of crossing over into different emotional spaces, like
And I
he's
think Mark Ruffalo does such a good job of it. And we do see Mark Ruffalo break down. Like we see him kind of being like, wait, hold on, man. Like stop making jokes. Like I'm going through something right now.
Yeah, like this whole place makes me so angry.
yeah. Well,
What's going on?
I think one of the most beautiful scenes in the entire movie is when Hulk is in the Quinjet and he sees that video of Black Widow
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he
And that's
loses
when
it.
Yeah.
Yes.
He just loses it. And he's like, and he breaks apart. And then Ruffalo is
Breaks apart the
standing there.
ship too.
Yeah. But then it brings Ruffalo back, right? That experience with Natasha brings Ruffalo back. I thought that
And
was
I
that's a
like
really touching
seeing-
moment.
I like seeing Mark Ruffalo kind of act out all those emotional kind of scenes because we see him having like a lot of different struggles.
Oh yeah,
struggling
he
with
went
the
through a lot of
amnesia,
shit.
and with his fear of like permanently staying as the Hulk, and then he kind of like overcomes his
Yeah.
fear to like help in the battle when he has to. So like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think he was great in this. I liked watching.
Yeah, he was
that.
great.
There's
Yeah,
a
he was
lot.
great.
There was a lot to him in this movie. Then
Yeah.
even in like his standalone movie, this one was a really good one. Just for the Hulk himself was a really good movie.
Yeah. So the other thing I want to talk about is Loki, because I feel like there's a beat that's kind of out of place for the entire film. That last time he betrays Thor as they're going to the ship after they fought all those guys. By the way, this is the first time we've ever seen Thor and Loki with guns. That was kind of weird. That was kind of weird. I gotta say, that was really fucking weird.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of when that was. Was that when they escaped?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they had those like Gatling laser guns.
I think it made sense in the context because
Of
they
the
were like in a
escape.
prison
Yeah.
and there was just guns everywhere. So why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. It reminded me a little bit of what's that one movie? The other Marvel movie, Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, Guardians of the Galaxy. Thank you. Oh my god, I was having a brain fart. It reminded me a little bit of that when they come in with the two guns. They're just like, dude, this is so that like something from that movie. I'm like,
Yeah.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah, no. And so going back to that moment, Loki betrays Thor before they jump on the ship, and then Thor pulls the fast one on him and gets that disc on him, right? And he
Yeah.
electrocutes him.
Yeah.
I think
feel
that
like
moment.
I feel like he just knows he can never really trust Loki. Like,
Unfortunately.
Yeah, but
Mistress.
yeah, but they have that exchange in the elevator, right? And Thor basically says, "I've kind of given up on you." He's like, "I'm done trying. Like I'm not really, you are who you are, and I'm never gonna change you. So I'm just gonna stop trying." I think that was a big emotional progression for Thor. Actually, that's probably one of the more significant character development moments for Thor in that movie, is seeing him just kind of, accept who his brother is and that he's not going to change, and he just kind of needs to let him come to him. You can't force people to change. I think that's a really good moment. But going back to what I was saying about Loki, is right before he kind of has his moment of redemption on the bridge, and in the vault with Surtur's crown, we see him almost try and betray Thor again. I just felt like that was really out of place. Like, why did Thor have, like, it didn't really even serve the story. It really didn't do a lot. Like, Loki could have remained on the mission with Thor, went to Asgard, done the exact same thing. But when he betrayed him, Korg finds him and says, "Hey, you want to come on this ship with us? We're going to get out of here." And he ends up on Asgard anyways. So I don't know. I just kind of felt like that was just, funny for the sake of funny. Like, let's just do something funny for the sake of funny. I don't know, but
I could see that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I kind of saw that more as after Thor had that moment with Loki and they were talking. I feel like that's more of a moment where Loki's like, well, I don't want you to give up on me completely. Like, I get that you accept me, but I don't want you to give up on me. So he's still got to make like his move. And obviously Thor wasn't going to trust him to take him all the way over there. So he found another way.
That's a good point. I think that's a good point. Okay. No, that's fair. That's fair. So let's talk about the supporting cast, because there's a lot of great players in this film. Korg is amazing. All the little parts that Taika Waititi plays throughout this movie.
Which I didn't even know. I didn't even honestly know that the director also played Korg in the movie. I was like, wait, what?
that's amazing.
Oh yeah, yeah. Surtur was amazing in the beginning. Clancy Brown voices Surtur. I love Clancy Brown so much. I think he's one of the best voice actors of all time. He's done Lex Luthor. He played Savage Opress in the Clone Wars series. He's fantastic. And Valkyrie was an amazing addition, I think, to this cast.
Yeah.
She
Jeff
played
Goldblum.
Sorry?
Yeah.
And Jeff Goldblum.
Yep.
The Grand
Yep.
Master.
Yeah. And everybody kind of had everybody had a lot of really big moments, like, scene stealing moments. Like Jeff Goldblum stole a couple scenes from Chris Hemsworth for sure. And even Stan Lee's cameo was probably one of the more funnier ones.
Yeah, like Stan Lee.
Right?
So
Like
that's why I said I felt like the pacing was really good of the movie.
Yeah.
Because it didn't feel like they introduced the characters in their own time, kind of thing, and they mixed different characters together in a really good way. So it never felt like there was too many people in the room at the same time. So yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot. Yeah, there was a lot of great. I was supporting cast, the B actors on the side, which they're not even the B actors. A lot of those guys are AAA actors. They were all really good. It was just like they had their own perfect little mini movie moments in the movie, and I liked them all. Like they made the movie what it was because of them. Without them, if they were any other actor, I think it would have still been a good movie, but it wouldn't have been a greater movie if they weren't in there.
Yeah, it was pretty seamless, to be honest. Like, it was pretty seamless the way that the actors played off of each other. You kind of, like, nothing ever really took you out of the movie. I think it was very well executed as far as giving everybody a good amount of screen time and giving them moments where you could actually remember and that were
Like who they
significant.
were.
Yeah.
Like it's not
significant.
their movie, but you
Yeah.
remember those characters. Because in a lot of movies you don't do that. They're like, oh yeah, the supporting cast, they were great. But these ones, they're like, yeah, no, they were great. Like they were good. Like you were actually remember the scenes that they were in if you mention them.
Yeah, no, and you know, a lot of these characters are still being celebrated 3 years later, you know. I think because of Ragnarok is why we had Valkyrie in Endgame. I think it's why we had Korg in Endgame. And you know, I think that you know, Taika Waititi did such a good job with these characters that they carried over into these bigger franchises. You know, I don't see a lot of Ant-Man characters coming over into Endgame.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
I was gonna say, I think that's what makes this movie really good. I think it's the fact that they did a really good job with all the other characters and giving them
Me too.
life and death.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that's a big plus for sure. I think that's something that they really kind of hit the nail on with the execution for sure. So, favorite scenes or sequences from the film. I'm gonna go first. Anything where they were playing Led Zeppelin is like my favorite. Those are two of my favorite action sequences in the entire history of Marvel. The one on the bridge and the one at the beginning. The one on the bridge is more memorable though to me because of not only the slow motion shot of Thor coming down like into that crowd, but at the same time there's that cut to Valkyrie walking in front of the ship with fireworks going off.
Like
I was
it
literally
like, what?
It literally felt like a music video. It felt like a music video.
I didn't know where the fireworks came from. I was like, is this part of her power set? Like, what is happening?
I could see that.
It's coming from the Grandmaster's orgy ship. That's where it's coming from.
His sex ship.
Yeah, it's orgy ship.
Well, she has like cool armor when she's the Valkyrie, so I'm like, I don't know, maybe she has powers too. But yeah, that was weird.
Yeah, no, it was great, and you know, it was literally that last action piece was like a music video. It was kind of nuts. Like, and everybody had their role. Loki was like doing some crazy shit. He was doing somersaults and all kinds of like crazy close quarter combat moves with his knives and his helmet. Like it was pretty badass. Yeah. Korg and Meek were like all over the place. Like that was such a good scene. That was such a good action sequence. And
I like it when movies or TV shows that do that. There's a lot of things going all over the place. It kind of gets your mind pumping, kind of like, oh, dude, I'm putting all these pieces together. Like, ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, so good, so good.
Yeah, it was really good.
And you know, I really love all the scenes between Thor and Loki. I love the gladiator scenes; those were great. I love when Thor tries to calm the Hulk down. He's like, the sun's going down, and he grabs his hand. He just slams him into the ground. Oh, that was so good.
Yeah,
that was so good.
Loki. Now you know how it feels.
Yeah. Loki's in the.
That was such a good bro. That's a perfect like remembrance from a previous movie. Like I remember you did that too.
As many holes as I poked in this film tonight, I really love a lot of it. Like there's so many visually stunning and memorable scenes. You know, like when Valkyrie first comes tries to come in between those scavengers and Thor, and you know, those arms come up out of her ship and they're like two guns, but they're connected to her arms. Like all she has to do is like wave her arms around. I was like,
I love that type of sci-fi
that's so
stuff.
Cool, dude.
Yeah. That's the type of sci-fi stuff that I love. You're just like, oh, technology that just like doesn't really exist technically, but it's like when you see it in a movie and they do it perfect, it's just like, damn, that's so freaking cool.
Oh yeah, that was pretty cool.
Like I felt like Flash Gordon, Star Wars, and Battlestar Galactica like all jumped into a room and had an orgy together, and this is kind of what popped.
They were on that ship.
Yeah, they were on that ship.
They all talked in the ship. That's where they were doing all their writing.
Yeah, fantastic. What about you, Jared? What was some of your favorite scenes or sequences from the film?
Some of them you mentioned, but I already one that I've already previously mentioned. I think it's too freaking fun because I really always like the Hulk from the previous movies, like the ones that are technically not part of the MCU. Were all really good movies. I really much enjoyed just because those were kind of like one of the first superhero movies back in the day when I was a kid. But it's just Hulk in the bathtub when Thor comes in and you're just like, oh yeah, there's a Hulk in the bathtub. Oh, He's coming up. Oh wow, I could see everything. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like that's me. Thor's me at that exact moment. I'm just looking up, like, yeah, that's happening. Yep, he's totally naked, just walking up, just whatever. Like, I freaking loved it. I just think that was just a funny moment. I feel like that would totally been me. But all the other previous action shots, I love anything action. Anything that's just a lot of people, a lot of fighting going on. So all the shots of when the Valkyrie was destroying all of the Asgardians, and it was just anything that was a lot of movement, a lot of like just shooting, fighting, things going on. Your brain's kind of like trying to put all the pieces together.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that in this movie. And for me personally, that's the kind of stuff with that just kind of just goes perfect for who I am. And I love it. I don't know. It's great. I lose my train of thought because I just how good it is. Can't put real words to it. I like them all.
Selena, what about you? What were some of your favorite scenes?
Oh, my favorite was definitely when the fight between Hulk and Thor was going on, and watching Loki. I'm a big Loki fan. So seeing that, like, I associate with that. I get that feeling. And just watching Loki was so hilarious. Like, I loved it. That was my favorite by far.
Nice.
Yeah, she screams like a little girl every time he's on the scene.
Shut up.
Every time he pops up, oh my God, it's Loki.
You're annoying. No, I do not.
She pretty much does. Sometimes I
You're
feel
so
a little,
irritating.
I feel like, damn, maybe if he was here in front of me, who would she actually choose?
Loki.
Christina, what about you?
I have to agree. I really like that scene with Thor and Hulk kind of battling it out, and also like the contrast with the people watching was like really funny in that scene. And,
the other scene we didn't talk about at all was Doctor Strange. Where
was he? I forgot about that.
That was a funny moment. Like they're going to search for Odin, and then this little portal underneath Loki just opens up, and he just falls through it, and then the card flips out, and it says 177A Bleecker Street, and so Thor goes down to Greenwich Village, up to Strange's mansion, and he meets Doctor Strange, and I really liked the way they put that scene together, because they were just using jump cuts to kind of make it seem like he was being teleported all over the place during that conversation. But the best part is when Thor's leaving, he's like, "Can I get my brother back?" And he opens up the portal. He's like, "I've been falling for 13 minutes."
Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally forgot about you.
So
that was
good.
Funny.
So good. And that. See, that's the other thing about the movie is it's so stuffed full of little microcosm moments that you can almost forget about them, because there's just so much going on in the grander scheme of this film, especially the fact that they pack so many other characters and so many other MCU actors into this film. It's definitely, I'd say that it probably has more cameos or more additional Avengers or Marvel heroes than any of the other standalones. I'm almost certain. Yeah, I'd probably say that's probably right, because Spider-Man had Iron Man. I know that. Yeah. Captain America had Winter Soldier, but he was a bad guy. Civil War. Well, I don't count Civil War. I will never count Civil War as a standalone film ever.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous notion. I think that movie's completely about, like, if you had to label the protagonists in that movie, it's Tony and Steve, without a doubt. And maybe Bucky is like the other guy, and then probably T'Challa, I'd say, is probably like in there for sure. But yeah, this movie, it still ranks around among my top 5 for sure. Like, even though I can poke as many holes as I did, but like, I'm just being a nerd about it. I'm just being a picky film nerd, where I'm just like, this needs to make sense for me. Even is the MCU. That's why I'm saying that these long form cinematic stories, these constrained into 2.5 hours, whatever, it just doesn't work anymore. Like, you're leaving so much on the table when you're constructing your story, or you're coming up with your character arc. You have to leave so much on the table, and sometimes it just kind of leaves these plot holes or these character holes that guys like me on podcasts will pull apart.
Which I think, in a way, I kind of want that to happen if they knew how to play it correctly. If they
Yeah.
could put like a side movie in there, like just another movie on the side, like, hey, let me just add all those plot holes that we had put it and then we did it on purpose because here's another movie to kind of like fill those all in. And if they could have done that, and I think they could do that in a lot of the Marvel movies, that would be awesome. I think that would be, I mean, they can make a lot more money that way, but also it'd be great for all the fans to be like, oh, that is awesome. That makes so much more sense. Thank you.
Well, as we move more towards these digital at-home platforms, like I think that we're going to see
a lot of those mini TV episode type stuff. Yeah, I can see that because they're starting to do. Yeah, they are doing that out right now, don't they? Have it's a couple Marvel.
WandaVision, Moon Knight,
WandaVision.
She-Hulk.
Yeah,
and Falcon and Winter Soldier. I can't wait for WandaVision.
Yeah, exactly, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. I feel like they did it on purpose, and they just didn't let us know because in the back of their heads they knew a Disney Plus kind of thing was going to be coming down the pipeline. And finally, now that it's out, hey, by the way, 5 years from now, all these new movies are now episodic movies. I mean, TV shows. You can now watch to fill out all the plot holes that we put in the movies on purpose.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's the grand scheme of things for them to make more money.
Yeah. So
if they leave some things unexplained, they can always make another movie about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think if you do the calculus on this film, I want to get your guys' take on this before we go. I think if you take all the action sequences and you take all the emotional sequences and you take all the comedic sequences, I think it's one of the most complete MCU films. I really do. I don't know. It feels like the most flushed out. It feels like the most satisfying. Like there's super satisfying action moments. There's super satisfying comedic moments that could like and the moments that I'm talking about could live in a vacuum by themselves. And just be moments, like they could just be scenes or sequences.
Scene. Yeah, that's just a mini movie within themselves,
and just have the same impact on its own, right? And I don't think I can say that a lot about a lot of MCU films, especially not standalone titles where you're just being it's just a Thor or it's just an Iron Man or whatever. I think that this one is definitely one of the better standalone films for sure. And again, Civil War doesn't count, folks. So don't tag me in Instagram and be like, but what about Civil War? It doesn't count. So anyways, but before we go, I want to add, I just want to posit one more point here. Do you think it could now be argued that after the Russos, that Taika is probably now the most influential member of Marvel's laundry list of creators?
I feel like he did a really good job with this, and I'm really excited to see where he's going to go with Love and Thunder. I do hope that because that story is kind of heavier, I do hope we see kind of some of the more dramatic scenes in that.
Oh yeah, we will.
Yeah.
Yeah, we will. But he is going to undercut it with humor. Like, listen, he did Jojo Rabbit, and I don't know if you guys saw that film, but it's really powerful.
That was last year. It's supposed to be a comedic movie, right?
Well, there's a lot of let's just say he cuts a lot of drama with a lot of humor in it too.
Yeah, like, and I've definitely seen like some of his non-MCU films, and I feel like they do capture like more of a balance between the dramatic moments and the comedic moment.
Taika likes the calculus of humor and drama. He really likes that calculus. Like he really likes
that's what
coming up with these formulaic approaches to striking the perfect balance and finding the perfect moments to throw in a joke or to throw in something with some emotional weight. I don't know.
I think he's a really good, when it comes to being a director, coming to like having to know where those comedic parts need to be placed.
Yep.
I think with Ragnarok, he hit the nail right on the head. And because of that, I feel like all the other movies, including like that last movie you just mentioned, Jojo Rabbit, you're saying that it's because I thought it was a comedic movie and you just mentioned the same thing. I think that just became his kind of like, who he is. He just knows how. He's just like a director that knows how to play with comedic scenes just right. And if you want that in a movie, have him as a director. Yeah. And if anything he comes out from here on out, it's going to be good and funny.
He's a freaking surgeon when it comes to comedy. Like he's literally, he knows exactly where to cut. He knows exactly where to cut. It's crazy.
Where to prolong the scene, where to stop it. He has place it at the right spot. Yeah.
This is his superpower. This is definitely his superpower for sure. But I think it can be argued that he is he has become one of the more influential MCU creators because so much of his stuff has crossed over into the new chapters, right? So right after Ragnarok, we had Captain Marvel. Yeah, it was Ragnarok, Captain Marvel, or was it Ragnarok, Black Panther, then Captain Marvel? Yeah, wasn't it? I can't remember. Anyways,
I don't remember.
But we saw so much of Ragnarok bleed through into Infinity War and Endgame, right? There's so much of that DNA in Infinity War and Endgame, and I don't see that with a lot of the other creators. Maybe Chadwick Boseman, I'd say maybe a little bit of his, because we got that whole Wakanda scene in Infinity War, so I think that's probably notable. But as far as, and well, James Gunn too, like, but I think Taika is really has a lot of DNA kind of permeating across other Marvel properties that people aren't even aware of. I think that, the comedy in other Marvel movies has been good, but I don't think that I don't think any other creator could have pulled off what Taika did with Ragnarok.
I don't know. I really enjoyed the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and that's kind of like what I was comparing it to. I fit this movie into that category. But I think I still found those ones both had more depth than this one did. So
you felt like Guardians had more depth?
In a way, yeah. More character growth, more character development, more they
weren't cutting the emotional moments.
Emotional scenes.
Yeah. They weren't cutting the emotional beats with comedic beats, right? Like he wasn't trying, like James Gunn.
Well, I felt like they were funny. Those movies were also funny. So I don't know.
Yeah, they were on a different level of funny. I want to say.
Yeah, I think they're on a different level of funny too, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, guys, that's gonna about wrap it up. Thank you, Chris. Sorry, guys. Let me take that again. 3, 2. Well, guys, I think that what the fuck? It's getting long. It's getting long here. All right, here we go. 3, 2. Well, guys, that's all she wrote. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank our guests, Jeremy and Selena. Thank you guys for joining us. I had a really fun time talking to you guys about Ragnarok and kind of put me back into that time in 2017 where we were standing in front of Red Rocks trying to get tickets, and Jeremy finds out that they're in Santa Monica. Just kind of took me back there again. But yeah, no, I really appreciate having you guys on. I miss you guys. I haven't talked to you guys in a long time. It's great
Absolutely, man.
This was kind of like a hangout session, without food and without drink, but I really appreciate it.
We poured ourselves a cup of wine.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, nice. You're drinking now? Look at you.
I had a feeling he was going to catch that.
Look at you. Look at you. Is this a COVID measure, Jer? Is this what?
No, you know me. I'm just totally drinking. My alcohol is still really nice and clean and neat on top of the kitchen. Nice and displayed now.
Okay.
In our house.
All right. Okay.
But either way, it was a lot of fun. We had a great time, and I feel like it's really nice to be able to talk this out with you guys. Like, you guys put in a lot of ideas that I would have never even thought to think about during the Thor movies. So
yeah, that's what I do. See, that's exactly
that's how you
what I do.
In everything.
Yeah, I kind of dissect everything and deconstruct everything to until it's almost atomic, like it's almost dust. Sometimes I need to relax on that stuff. Like, I don't know if you guys listen to our Batman episode or you listen to our our Batman episode is probably the best example of that. We went deep, dude. Like, we went super, super deep on Batman.
Oh, no.
You're making it sound dirty.
Sorry?
Oh, what?
I'm not making it sound dirty. Come on. People at home know what I'm talking about.
Do they?
Don't be silly. Don't be silly. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you guys spending your time with us. If you could do us a huge favor, tell your friends about the show. Tell your friends about our podcast. We'd love more people to check it out. If you have any like-minded, super nerdy culture vulture friends, like we should all have, because why would you want to hang out with people that have nothing in common with you? Share the show with them. I think they'd enjoy it. But we're going to sign off here. I'm Frank McGuire.
I'm Christina Didimer.
Peace.
Bye.